So this is a guy, Dave Smith, who used to be on, he's on Rogan all the time. And Rogan has had a recent split with Trump over the immigration stuff. And now this dude is apparently having an issue with the Iran stuff. So let's check this out real quick. I don't know how fast he gets to it, but...
By friend of the show, Dave Smith. We're going to be talking about the fallout here from the U.S. Involvement in the war between Israel and Iran. But most importantly, we want to get to the actual goal here of the Israeli military campaign. Prime Minister Bibi Netanyahu really giving the game away yesterday in an interview with Fox News, where he calls for regime change with Iran. Let's take a listen.
So is regime change part of the effort here?
Could certainly be the result, because the Iran regime is very weak. I think it's basically left with two things. It's plans to have atomic bombs and ballistic missiles. That's basically what Iran has. They certainly don't have the people. 80% of the people will throw these theological thugs out. I mean, they murder them. They oppress them for 46 years. They've yearned for freedom. I mean, they shoot women because their hair is uncovered. They shoot students. They just suck the oxygen from the...
Oh, Kate just says, Hal, Mike Lindell lost in court today. So the day does end in Y. That's good.
This brave and gifted people, the Iranian people.
I want to talk about the nuclear threat, and I want to talk about President Trump. You just said Iran tried to assassinate President Trump twice. Do you have intel that the assassination attempts on President Trump were directly from Iran?
Through proxies, yes. Through their intel, yes. They want to kill him. Look, he's enemy number one.
Brett Baer thinks what he means is that the two shooters that took a shot at Trump are somehow, related to Iran. They're not. They've sent two different groups allegedly into the country, or plotted to do it and failed, whatever.
Decisive leader. He's
all right. Anyways, blah. Let's get forward. I want to see what this dude says about where Trump is with this stuff, because this is what the story is really about. And okay, here we go.
Regime change. There is the flattery and the lies potentially about this some so-called Iranian plot to assassinate Trump, and then finally there is the really buttering it up, but calling Trump to join him in this war on regime change. Just broadly, we want to give you the floor, both to react to that and to the entire situation here.
Because we know what you're going to say, and for once we're on the same side of it, so we'll bring you on when we want to play this part of it, and the rest of the time we'll treat you like an asshole.
Yeah, well, it's just you're allowed to throw as many lies at the wall as you want to when you're selling a war. So there's a lot there to kind of unpack. Number one, I would just say, first off, the accusation that Iran was trying to assassinate Donald Trump just doesn't meet the most basic of smell tests. I mean, so you're telling me that the Iranian regime essentially declared war on the United States of America already, tried to murder the sitting president, and yet his response was to try to negotiate with them for a couple months until finally we had Israel attack them. Does that make sense to anybody? They tried to murder Donald Trump.
U.S. authorities have detected an Iranian plot to assassinate former President Donald Trump, leading the Secret Service to increase security around him. This plot is believed to be a retaliation for a U.S. drone strike that killed Qasem Soleimani in 2020. Iran has denied those allegations. Key details of the alleged plot. Individuals involved. Farhad Shakeri, an alleged asset of Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, the IRGC, has reportedly tasked by the IRGC to surveil and assassinate Trump. He is currently at large in Iran. Associates in the U.S. Shakeri allegedly hired two New Yorkers he met in prison, Carlisle Rivera and Jonathan Lodeholt, to carry out the assassination plot. They have been arrested and charged with murder for hire and related offenses. The IRGC reportedly instructed Shakeri to focus on the assassination in September of 2024, possibly in anticipation of Trump losing the election. The plot is believed to be in retaliation for Soleimani's death, and the Secret Service raised security measures around him. Yes, that happened. Do you guys remember that?
And then he entered negotiations with that?
Yes, because he's a transactional human being and a sociopath.
Come on, this is too ridiculous.
Or maybe he never really meant it when he was talking about these negotiations. He knew they couldn't meet the standard he was giving, and he was just giving Israel plausible deniability so that they could attack.
And you could go back. The thing about Saddam Hussein that a lot of people kind of forget in history is that.
Also, by the way, Warhawks call for regime change in Iran. I'm sure there have been a few out there, maybe, I don't know who, Tom Cotton, Lindsey Graham, do that or whatever. But the idea that there are some that call for regime change in Iran and some who don't is the spectrum that's going on. But the idea that this somehow should lead the conversation is propaganda from Breaking Point.
It is true that at one point Saddam Hussein did have what you could call weapons of mass destruction. He used chemical weapons in his 1980 through 1986 war with Iran and was supported by the United States of America while he did it. He then got rid of those weapons programs. And the neocons and Benjamin Netanyahu himself, you can read in his writing in the 90s when he was telling us that Iran was a few years away from a nuclear weapon all the way back then. But he was also saying that they wanted to overthrow Saddam Hussein for other reasons, for their clean break strategy. You can read about this in the Project for a New American Century, in the Clean Break memo written.
Yes, Donald Trump is following the old playbook like we said he would, just like Project 2025. This is another rebrand of PNAC. Yeah, exactly, asshole. The dude told you who he was. But somehow, like he would say, 80% of the things he'd say were like, this dude is definitely going to, green light all kinds of shenanigans all over the world. And then he was like, but I want to be the peace president. You're like, you just memory hole all the details.
By Richard Pearl and David Wormser. They talked about this over and over and over again. And then after 9/11, they said the issue here is weapons of mass destruction. But they always wanted the regime change. And so it's the same thing again. The goal here has been regime change in Iran. He's been open about this. He even admitted it a little bit there. But let's just take them. Look, let's just really assess the situation where we are right now. Let's take them by their own logic. If, as all the hawks are bragging right now, or saying that essentially, Israel was already at war with Iran because Iran attacked first on October 7th. They are proxies attacked. And what does that mean? It's like when they say Iran is the #1 sponsor of terror. Do they ever have to back that up with data? Do they ever
Yes, they do. Yeah. Saying a regime sponsors terror is an active call. It is not just a random detail you put in your fucking Tinder bio, dum-dum. Yes, they know the money transfers. They know how it gets there. Again, Russia and Iran are friends. That's why all these fuckers have AK-47s.
Have you ever heard one war hawk who makes the claim that Iran is the #1 sponsor of terror ever show you, look, this is how much terrorists have gotten support from Saudi, and this is how much more they've gotten from Iran? No, they never even feel the need to make this argument.
Because it doesn't compare? I mean, go ahead. I would love to hear that. I think you'd be interested. I'd be interested in that detail, wouldn't you? Tell me about the Saudi-funded stuff, because Trump just went over and made big friends with them. He loves them way more. If you're going to talk about him softballing Iran all of a sudden, Jesus Christ, he practically filleted MBS when he was over there. So if you're saying the Saudis are deeper into terrorism and stuff, go for it, buddy. But you're not going to clean up after Trump with that noise.
How much money the U.S. has given to terrorist organizations, or Israel has given to terrorist organizations, or Israel has facilitated other countries give it. Like there's no objective standard here. But
yeah, there is.
If essentially the standard is because Iran has given Hamas some weapons in the past, therefore they're a proxy, and therefore when they attack Israel on October 7th, Iran has attacked Israel. Well then, what is Israel attacking Iran? Other than the U.S. attacking Iran, right? If that's not, and come on, and look, this is
proxies.
That's where look how happy she is. That's where they want this to go. And again, if you're a big Trump supporter, the idea that Netanyahu would do anything without his approval is an affront to his ego. And if Trump okayed this and did give approval to it, that's an affront to everything you voted for, allegedly, which is where this guy is.
State.
Yeah, and same with Ukraine and Russia. It's the same line of argument.
No, it is not.
So if you're,
No. There were not volleys back and forth of missiles, for 3 months leading up to Russia's attack on Ukraine. Shut the fuck up.
This one is so much more devastating because it's not just that we give Israel the weapons and the money and the intelligence, but at the
We sell them a lot of the weapons. We also buy stuff from them as well.
very least here, I mean, we had people, we had evacuation orders 24 to 48 hours before the attack came. Donald Trump is speaking out of both sides of his mouth. Netanyahu here is clearly saying that Donald Trump knew this attack was coming. So imagine they had that on Iran with October 7th. They don't have anything close to that. So make no mistake about it. We are at war with Iran right now. The United States of America is. Donald Trump has betrayed MAGA, betrayed America first. He is.
Wait, sorry. Are we supposed to believe that that was all bullshit?
That was just bullshit, Joel.
Made the most disastrous decision to lead America into another war. Now, if they want to say that, look, there is an argument here, I suppose, that perhaps Iran is a better candidate for a regime change than Iraq or Libya was. This is the argument they're going to make.
And you just made it like a pussy. I'm just saying. Like, that's the other problem, is that a bunch of these guys are all saying this. They're just not. They're like, well, I could see that this might be a different thing, but I'm so married to my analogy in this situation that I've got to jump back to this. And of course, what's his name over here? Dipshittery over on that side. This is what he brought him on to say.
It seems a much more compelling argument that we're staring at yet another disaster. And as you were pointing out, Crystal, I heard a little bit of your segment as I was.
Oh, you mean like the last Republican leadership got us into the Iraq and Afghanistan wars, and this motherfucker's getting us into worse shit while siding with dictators? Hey, I don't know, maybe don't fucking vote for Republicans anymore.
Waiting here, as you were pointing out, which I think is really the most important point, is that this is the celebrating. It's just like unbelievable. It's 24 hours into it. They're all celebrating how easy this was. Look, I remember I was a little kid at the time, but I do vividly remember the celebrations after the Gulf War in 1991. And they were like, look how easy that was. And we didn't take any losses. We went on to be bogged down in that country for 30 years.
Yeah, but not from that. That was a whole other action. We didn't stay in there from the Kuwait strikes. What the fuck are you talking about? Do you not know there were two Bushes?
Following that war. We all remember the mission accomplishment. We all remember.
Yeah, different guy, asshole. Different war. Different, I mean, father to son. I understand the two names might be confusing to you, but we didn't stay there after that. We didn't have to go back in. We didn't, like Al Gore, if he'd have become president, would have been forced to stay in Iraq because George H.W. Bush, certainly fucking Clinton didn't have to.
Hillary Clinton saying, we came, we saw, he's dead. A few years later, when she was running for president, she wouldn't dare bring up Libya because it was so obviously a colossal failure. So the people celebrating this right now are just, they've lost their minds. I mean, people get swept up in war fever.
The flash.
Also, what about the Iranians that are celebrating? I mean, it's not for me to say, or not for them to say, I guess, these guys. But there's a lot of Iranians in Iran and around the world that are celebrating the possible toppling of the Ayatollah and that stuff, and seeing a possibility that they could reform. Like there's all these NGOs created by, Iranians in exile that are all over the place. They would love to go back to their country, but they can't, or they'll be killed unless the regime changes. They seem to be excited about it. Are they allowed?
Flashbacks, the WMD talk, the like celebratory mission accomplished vibe, in that clip with Bibi, and I've heard so many others say this, they're yearning for freedom. I mean, it's just like, it makes me feel like has everybody just erased their memories of what happened here? It's utterly.
Hey, asshole, this ain't us. I mean, I know, here's the thing. You have to make the case that America is at war with Iran because Israel's just our proxy. That proxy is, is a permanent status and it never shakes. And that, Netanyahu, it doesn't have a play in this at all. That Trump is being puppeted by the military-industrial complex, and Netanyahu is 3 strings down as a marionette. And that, this is going to happen no matter what the fuck they do. And and so therefore we are at war in Iran. They have to make that case. so that they can compare it to the bullshit that the Bush administration sold that we didn't buy. I didn't buy it. You didn't buy it. The vast majority of the people who watch my show or Midas Touch or any of these people who voted for Kamala Harris, voted for Joe Biden, specifically, Joe Biden was the guy who told Obama, like, the generals are going to keep telling you just 3 more months. And and the next thing you do, you're going to look up and years will have passed. Get the fuck out. And when he became president, that's what he did. Everybody was telling him punt. As soon as he came in, the generals were saying the same thing they had said to everybody else. And what did Joe Biden do? He got the fuck out. The only reason he extended it 3 months for himself was to extract as many people who had helped us as they possibly can. Because Trump had set this artificial deadline that he has already said he would have punted. So fuck off with this nonsense that it's direct comparison. A, it ain't our country. And if you're arguing that Israel is just doing everything it's doing out of a proxy attack, or even if they're just counting on us having their back, that's still them acting like any other European ally would be in a situation where they were attacked. The idea that this is like we're yellow caking this shit is just dumb. On Thursday, the Iranians said we're going to enrich more uranium. Not only are we going to keep doing what we're doing, but we're going to open a new site to do it. Iraq never did that. Iraq didn't go, you goddamn right we've got sarin gas.
Insane to me. And to your point about our involvement, let's put this next piece up on the screen. We now know that at least the recent discussions about, diplomatic negotiation.
A U.S. official confirmed to me that over the weekend, Israel had an operational window to assassinate Iran's Supreme Leader Ali Khamenei, but President Trump made it clear he is against such a move. This was first reported by Steve Holland. I've heard this bounced around as well. And what U.S. official? Hegseth?
And hey, we're going forward with these talks this weekend.
This, by the way, this sounds like a talking point. The U.S. official would be Caroline Leavitt, because he's losing his standing with the maggots over not being the peace president. So they have to lay this at Netanyahu's feet and say, well, we talked them down. They were going to do way worse.
Was a ruse to provide cover and the element of surprise for the Israelis. So now you have this report. A U.S. official confirmed to me over the weekend Israel had an operational window to assassinate Iran's supreme leader.
I already read it.
Khamenei, but President Trump made it clear he is against such a move. This was first reported by Steve Holland. There is no reason for anyone, us, the Iranians, anyone, to believe these reports.
Right. Which ones, though? All of them? None of them. It's like watching that dude who's allegedly an ex-CIA guy who's all over the place. You're like, dude, how do I know? How does anybody know whether you're telling the truth or not? Because the whole thing you've taught everybody is that you're all about deception, evasion, and intelligence. So maybe you're not. It's like, I feel like the computer in Star Trek. If everything you say is a lie, then that was a lie.
I mean, it does also remind me of, during the Biden, they're very upset with Netanyahu leaking to always Barack Ravi. They're very upset with him, et cetera, et cetera. Why?
Biden cussed him out.
Would anyone ever believe a word that comes from Trump or Steve Witkoff or anyone else associated with this administration?
I don't.
After they've gloated about the fact that they were using diplomatic negotiations as a tool to effectuate, to help kick off this war. I mean, I'm seeing this. I'm curious your thoughts about this, Dave.
Sorry, is that a direct quote? Sorry, they used diplomatic negotiations as a ruse to kick off this war. Witkoff and Trump have said this somewhere.
I've seen this analysis that Trump was persuaded, this might be true, was persuaded by Bibi that he would have a better hand going into negotiations with Iran if he let Israel start this war and participated, as we've indicated, in starting this war.
He talks like a tough guy all the fucking time.
That is the most idiotic, insane possible analysis I can imagine. I guess it's possible that he really is that absolutely idiotic.
Yes, he is. He is that stupid. And this guy voted for him. That's what we're here to talk about.
But, what?
But, like, okay, I need to jump ahead to whatever the fuck this guy was saying that everybody was, because again, he's a reg on, hold
You know, he has, again, we're kind of speculating here, but he has bragged in the past several times about how he's so smart for keeping these hawks around, because then that puts all these pressure on people to come to the negotiating
That's why
table.
he said he had John Bolton.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, his example
It's literally the only person he talked about. Raising Cain, he just likes his name.
was John Bolton, who killed the deal with North Korea. Like, that was his example of it being like such a stunning success or something like that. It reminds me of like when people brag about the Abraham Accords and what a success they were, and you're like, oh yeah, they worked out so great. They led to this. Like, how I don't even understand how you could. You know, it'd be one thing if peace.
What did you? This guy voted for Trump this time. Sorry, you had this idea about the Abraham Accords and you still voted for him?
Swept the Middle East after the Abraham Accords, and you go, oh, okay, maybe they played a role, but it's been a nightmare all across the worst fighting that we've had there in 20 years. And so since our last
Is his back wall says part of the problem? Is that the ironic thing that he doesn't consider himself part of the solution, so that's what the show is? I don't care enough.
Disastrous invasions. But so, you know, look, I mean, it seems to me like there's a couple possibilities here. None of them are good.
Well, then tell us how happy you are you voted for Donald Trump.
One of the possibility is
and then apologize to Kamala Harris and Joe Biden.
that, which I think is plausibly the case, that Israel betrayed Donald Trump, and then this is just his best way to deal with it. Like, essentially, Donald Trump was trying to negotiate, and then Israel just went ahead and launched the attack anyway. And then as a response to that, Donald Trump would rather look strong and go, no, I was in on it. It was our plan all along. Or the other possibility, which I think is more likely, is that he was never negotiating in good faith and it was a distraction and Donald Trump was in on it. Either way, we're at the same place.
Yeah.
You know, either way, even if Donald Trump was betrayed by the Israelis and then just took their side in public, which has happened with different presidencies over the years. It's certainly happened with Bill Clinton after Camp David. So maybe that's the case. But then either way, then you're just so weak and pathetic that even after the Israelis betray you, you'll still come out and catch their back and support them in this war. Well, that's just as bad from the Iranian perspective and from any reasonable person's perspective. So, you know, we don't know. We'll probably find out more about this over time. But either way, in effect, it's the same thing. You know, and then we're left in the position where you're supposed to sit here and justify a sneak, aggressive, preemptive attack. Like, somehow you're supposed to feel like you're the good guys in an absolute war of choice against a country that does not have nuclear weapons. Let's get real here. The only country in the Middle East who secretly has nuclear weapons is Israel. Iran is a member of the Non-Proliferation Treaty. Israel is not, and they have nuclear weapons.
Yeah, and
it's
they're
just unbelievable.
a rogue nation attacking six of their neighbors as we speak, and are not part of the non-proliferation.
We actually have
cool with that.
We have a non-compliant nuclear member of the NPT actually attacking a member of the NPT who is far more in compliance with said international treaty. Hey,
but hey, you voted for Trump. Tell us why. Jesus. This is sitting Israel teasing the return of monarchy to Iran as his government is bombing it. Soon in Tehran. Okay.
basically insinuating that they are going to re-implement the monarchy and or just like this, you know, fascination with these Western figures who have lived here, what, for their entire lives almost at this point. We're like, oh, actually, these guys.
Yeah, it's like DACA kids. You don't have Spanish or Mexican heritage. You may have come from South America when you were 9. You don't know shit. You don't even speak with the right accent.
Because we're buddies and they agree with us, the people of Iran will totally take to that.
Okay, hold on. Where's his little... There it is. Hold on.
Reason why we have the current government in Iran that we have, which is a horrible, repressive government that does not give their people liberty, and we should all, you know, oppose that. But the thing is that...
But not directly and not actually in any actionable way.
That war is so much worse. You know, it's like...
Sorry. War is... all right. Depends on what kind of war. Yeah. You know what I mean? If you were actually liberated because somebody else attacked your leadership and then finally you could go home or whatever, you'd probably feel differently, I guess.
Saddam Hussein was a brutal, oppressive dictator also, but the worst thing that ever happened to the people of Iraq was George W. Bush invading the country. And, you know, the only example...
So they should. So if they were still under Saddam Hussein, their lives would be better now. The ones that are alive, the ones that obviously, and again, this is from somebody who didn't support the war. So
examples that people look to, which are, you know, rather remarkable.
Oh, the Trump v. Carney, Leslie, did you see that?
Examples of regime change are Germany and Japan, and how they were brought back into the, you know, liberal international order after World War II. But what was required in order to get to that point was a clear war on the civilian population with, you know, millions of casualties. And that, like, if you're...
No, we did not declare war on the German populace. And even the nuking of Japan, where they went from an imperial system that was cult-like, more akin to North Korea, to the country they exist as now. That's one of the biggest Gordian knots of discussing Hiroshima and Nagasaki, is that it had the intended outcome. The Japanese people are clearly better off not under an imperial, an emperor who turns them into his own, like, sock puppets to die on his behalf.
If your argument is we should bring that to Iran, then don't tell me one word about how you care about how the people of Iran are being oppressed, because that's a far worse, you know, level of oppression. And so, you know, this is, again, as...
Also, again, if you're going to nuke them, sure, I agree.
You guys have touched on, this is always how they talk at the beginning of these wars. It's always that...
And in the middle and after them and during them, and it depends on who you're talking to and who's talking about it. And if you ignore everybody who has even a moderating voice on it, or assume that they're all neocons, if they're talking about it in gray terms at all, then of course everything sounds like a one note to you.
Democracy will sweep the region, and that the people will greet us as liberators. It'll be easy, paid for in oil, all this stuff. But, you know, sit here and tell me about how Washington, D.C. or Tel Aviv can, you know, reorchestrate another society, can reconstruct it from the ground and choose its leaderships. I mean, just think about the hubris involved in that. As the late, great Harry Brown used to point out when he was talking about the war on drugs in the United States of America, the U.S. federal government can't even keep drugs out of federal prisons. Washington, D.C. can't even solve the violent crime problem in Washington.
Well, there's an argument that they don't care to.
Washington, D.C. But you're telling me
that they serve a pacification purpose and certain elements, and they also give them the ability to do, you know, to, like, strip everybody's cell whenever they want to because of the existence in there. That would be the reason. You know, if you can think past the end of your own nose.
We're going to install the new leader for the Iranians, and
No, we're not. And we don't intend to. And no one's talking about that except you. And even Netanyahu and those guys are like, hey, the guys who used to run the joint would like to go back and turn it into basically a European country. And wouldn't that be lovely? And you already agree it would be.
People will comply because what? Because the regime is so weak and the people want liberty so much. This regime has ruled since 1979 with the most powerful governments in the world opposing them, working on ousting them the entire time. And they've...
No, they have not. Honestly. No, they haven't. As a matter of fact, it's been containment ever since, because it was so murky. You can basically say from the mid-'80s on, or the status quo with Iran has been containment and isolation, not regime change.
Still stayed in power.
Certainly not this way.
So you could tell me a nice story. It's easy to write down a nice story. Oh yeah, I say we intervene and then we put the Shah's son back in and then everything works out fine. Okay, let's see that happen. And you know, the other thing that I'll add, and I don't know, I mean, maybe things have changed to some degree. I mean, certainly Israel was able to pull off that drone attack, which I don't think they would have been able to pull off in years past. But it was in 2007 that the Pentagon told George W. Bush that we cannot go to war with Iran because we do not have escalation dominance against them, essentially meaning that they can hit all of our bases and embassies in the region, and we are very vulnerable to them. And we've already seen demonstrated since the Israeli attack that the Iranian the missiles that they sent last year toward Israel, as many of us guessed, that wasn't really their best. They were intentionally making an attack that wouldn't really hurt anybody, that wouldn't really lead to a war, which Iran has done over and over.
Because part of the reasoning behind that is they don't have the power that people think they do. So they didn't go for it at that time because the response would have been terrible. It's the same thing with Russia. This is the same bullshit we're hearing with Russia all the time. Look, man, do you want them to nuke us? We should just let them have Ukraine. That's the same. These are the same motherfuckers.
Over again. But now we've pushed them to the point where they probably don't feel that they have the option not to respond. And Donald Trump telling them to come back to the negotiating table now is a joke.
Yeah.
I mean, what a impotent leader to be sitting there talking about coming back to the negotiating table. It's like sitting after Pearl Harbor and telling FDR now
No, it isn't.
the time to go negotiate with the Japanese.
Right.
Negotiations are over now. The time for negotiations was before this. And so, yeah, Donald Trump looks, and man, I supported him this last year. I apologize for doing so. It was a bad calculation. At the time, it seemed like the right one. But he should be impeached.
He voted for Trump, the guy over there, so he still likes him. So she might. Well, I don't know. She and Kyle, are like these rich lefties, the millionaire Marxist crowd, like Jimmy Dore and that crowd. So like it's hard to figure out what their actual feelings was, like how they really threw the lever versus what they really said. But yeah.
And removed for this one, and not on some.
Sorry, he says he should be impeached and removed.
Was before this, and so yeah, Donald Trump looks, and man, I supported him this last year. I apologize for doing so. It was a bad calculation. At the time, it seemed like the right one, but he should be impeached and removed for this one, and not on some not on some ridiculous Nancy Pelosi. Of course, the Congress will never do it because they're all a bunch of corrupt hacks.
This is the one thing they support.
you, Joyce.
This is like
Donald Trump should be impeached and removed for this. All of his supporters should turn on him. It's the absolute betrayal of everything that he ran and.
Yeah, do yourself a favor, buddy. Hold your breath until they bring you back on Joe Rogan and say the exact same fucking thing to him. Because I gotta tell you, like I have zero. Not only do I have zero faith in the maggots turning on him and those kind of numbers, where the only choice we have is to flood the zone with Democrats in every possible way going into 2026. But it's not because we can count on the maggots standing down in this situation. That's absurd. We just have to outnumber them. We got to bring our A game completely in the next 3 election cycles. No apologies, no holding back at all. Otherwise, we're handing it over to these assholes, and the Congress aren't going to stand up to him. Yeah, and this guy, in 2 weeks, depending on how this goes, will absolutely flip back over to I was a little hard on Trump.
Campaigned on and everything that he stood for. And I will say, despite the fact that, Donald Trump supporters have been labeled like a cult following, and that certainly is true for a percentage of his support.
Yes, 95 is a percentage.
He is going to lose his coalition over this. I know.
Don't threaten me with a good time.
I don't just speak for myself when I say there are a lot of us who simply will not go along with this.
Well, you'd have to. You've been simply going along with it like a bunch of fucking simpletons, you simp, this entire time. Again, why is anyone surprised by any of this shit? What? You mean he's not the peace president? What? You mean tariffs actually take more from the economy than they give? How fucking thick? Now look, if these guys are willing to, walk back, blessings to you, sir. Yes, find your dead ass back, some rambly path back to the road. But good God, if you think I'm gonna hold my breath waiting for maggots to wake up, forget it. These guys will find another excuse. Yeah, because I got to tell you, I'm still of the mind that the only thing that will drive Donald Trump's supporters away from him long term is the fact that he cannot and will not release the Epstein files. Eventually, they're going to, the Vinnies of the world are going to ram butt each other's heads into that fact, and there's no way they can talk themselves out of it. They just can't.